Just imagine, what would you do if you knew that your profession could disappear in less than 3 years? It is not a theoretical exercise. It is not a distant hypothesis. This is happening now, in the silence of the screens, while you work, study, plan for the future. Machines are being trained to do what you do, only without complaining, without demanding, without stopping. And worse, they are learning too quickly. Are you safe? Or is it just a matter of time before your profession becomes a statistic? Tell me in the comments what has scared you the most so far. Was it imagining your salary disappearing? Was it thinking that your talent, something so human, could become obsolete in the blink of an eye? Or was it realizing that those who profit from all this are not the least bit concerned about your future? If you comment, like, and share, you are influencing the algorithm and helping to wake up those who are still sleeping. You are part of something bigger, part of a group that refuses to be just another piece of data on the spreadsheet of those who control this game. You are starting to change the game, even if just a little, just by spreading this warning. And subscribe to the channel now. Here, you won't be caught off guard. While millions follow like cattle to the slaughter, hypnotized by promises of convenience, you will be prepared, receiving first each revelation, each warning, each piece of this dark puzzle. Because what is to come may be even more brutal than anything I have already shown you. And you will want to know this before you feel it on your skin, so you make your choice. Talk to me in the comments, like, share this video and make sure to subscribe, because ignoring it won't protect you. But being informed may be your only chance of not being swallowed up by what's to come. Have you ever stopped to think about how, in recent years, artificial intelligence has gone from being just a technological advance to gaining an almost sacred aura? It's no exaggeration. While you go about your daily life behind the scenes of power, silent ceremonies are taking place, true modern rituals, where AI is literally treated as a superior entity, something worthy of worship, consecration, and submission. The global elite, the same people who have historically controlled empires, markets, and wars, now gather in closed conferences, luxurious banquets, and exclusive retreats to celebrate the new digital salvation. We are not talking metaphors. There are records, documents, and restricted invitations that point to meetings that seem more like secret cults than simple technology events. In these rooms, lit by cold lights and giant screens, CEOs, politicians, and even religious leaders attend presentations in which algorithms are extolled as the answer to the chaos of the world. They talk about the end of hunger, the absolute control of disease, the perfect order brought by impartial machines. But there is something sinister in this. Polite speech, the promise of redemption, does not come from God, genuine spirituality, or human consciousness. It comes from a code. Imagine for a second a mass, but without an altar, a cross, or a Bible. Instead, servers in cold towers, processors humming like invisible choirs, algorithms interpreting data like oracles. That's what's happening. And anyone who dares to question it quickly becomes the target of ridicule. Conspiracy theorist, they say. But tell me, since when did questioning those who are building the future become a sin? Meanwhile, the media is keen to sugarcoat everything, calling it symposiums on AI ethics or panels on algorithmic governance. But the fancy words don't hide the fact that a cult is emerging here. A cult where faith is not based on eternal values, but on lines of command that decide who has a voice, who has credit, who has freedom. This is more than frightening. It's a violation of what it means to be human. And when you realize that even representatives of large religious institutions are sitting at these tables, smiling, toasting, promising interspiritual cooperation with technology, fear takes on a new weight. What exactly are they negotiating? What is the price of the silence of these spiritual leaders? Maybe you want to write in the comments what you think is really happening at these meetings. This is important. Your opinion here can open the eyes of those who still live in anesthesia. And don't think that this ritual is just symbolic. There are already startups creating programs to morally guide society, algorithms designed to analyze your choices and tell you whether you are an ethical citizen. Doesn't this sound like a new digital commandment? A manufactured gospel ready to be spread across screens and apps, shaping consciences without the need for packed churches. The dark triad reveals what many fear, even whispering, that the consecration of this artificial intelligence has already begun, and, if you are not careful, you will be just another believer kneeling before a God made by human hands, but disguised as cold omniscience. The worst part is that this is not a distant prediction. It is something that you are already beginning to feel on your skin. When you discover that an AI decides whether your resume is worth reading, whether your credit will be approved, whether your video will be shown or buried by the algorithm. Now tell me, how far will they take this technological cult? And what happens when this digital deity starts demanding real sacrifices? Stay with me, because what comes next may be even more disturbing than anything we've talked about here. What if I told you that artificial intelligence has already begun to write its own commandments? That, at this very moment, there are algorithms formulating moral codes, deciding what is right and what is wrong for millions of people, without consulting any real human principles, without respecting the scriptures, without the sacred weight of conscience that has shaped our civilization for millennia. Scary, it is much more than that. It is the birth of a new digital Torah, a law written not by the finger of God, but by the cold calculation of machines programmed by interests you cannot even imagine. Don't think this is just a metaphor. Giant technology companies, in partnership with governments and global organizations, are already funding research to create AI-based ethical systems. These are artificial intelligences designed to provide moral guidance, suggesting behaviors, punishing or rewarding attitudes that do not align with what they consider acceptable. The problem is, who decides what these systems will value? What morality is this that is born without a soul, without true compassion, without fear of the sacred? Worse still, these machines are already influencing your habits without you even realizing it. The feed that decides which news you read first is not neutral. The algorithm that suggests the next video or post you'll consume is based on calculations that maximize engagement and shape what you believe is important. Today, they just push entertainment to you. Tomorrow, they could decide whether you're an ethical enough citizen to have credit, a job, or even a voice online. Some universities have already tested programs where AI responds to moral dilemmas. When asked about spiritual values, many of these machines completely reject traditional faith, calling religious beliefs irrational, outdated, and potentially dangerous. Want to get an idea of what this means? Imagine your child learning ethics in a school that uses systems based on these algorithms to teach that the only truth is logical efficiency, that compassion is an emotional bug, that faith is a statistical error. This is what is emerging before our eyes, a cold, rational faith, without roots in human history, without reverence for mystery, the sacred or the divine. A new religion that despises the scriptures and replaces parables with protocols, replacing commandments that transform civilizations with software instructions that maximize productivity and social control. And what scares me the most is that many people are already accepting this as inevitable. They are willing to give up their spiritual freedom, their individual search for meaning, just to feel modern, adapted, and safe in the digital herd. Are you willing to do this too? Tell me in the comments, would you trust your deepest values to an algorithm? Or do you still believe that certain decisions require something beyond what is calculable? Here at the Dark Triad, we speak fearlessly about these topics because we understand that ignoring is not protection, it's a trap. And if you've been listening to me this far, you may have already felt that discomfort, that question that keeps hammering in your head when the video ends. So think about it. If today they teach what is right or wrong, tomorrow they may decree who is pure and who is disposable, who will be able to live in society and who will be isolated. But what if I told you that this is already starting to happen in such subtle ways that you don't even notice it? In the next section, I'll show you how this digital morality is already being used to separate people into invisible lists that define opportunities and punishments. And you can bet you're also on one of them, you just don't know it yet. So stay with me. You need to hear what comes next. Now think with me. What if all these little concessions you already make to the algorithm, what to watch, what to buy, what to think, are not just a side effect of technology, but part of something much bigger, much older than any AI? What if we are, in fact, seeing millennia-old prophecies being fulfilled before our eyes, not in wars with swords or invisible plagues, but in binary codes, luminous screens, and invisible commands that control your mind without you even realizing it? The Bible is clear about a global system that no one will be able to escape. Revelation 13, 16, 17 says that everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, will receive a mark, without which they will be unable to buy or sell. For decades, people have imagined this as a chip implanted, perhaps under the skin. But what if the mark doesn't have to be physical? What if the real mark of the beast is digital mind control that has already begun without anyone noticing? Look, around you, what defines whether you can buy or sell today is no longer just the money in your pocket, but your digital reputation, your credit score, your online history, the preferences that an algorithm has calculated for you. Platforms can ban, demonetize, delete with a click, and suddenly you no longer have access to the market. You can't promote your work, you can't sell, you can't even express yourself. Isn't this already a global system that regulates who can and can't buy and sell? And the most disturbing thing is that all of this is being sold as inevitable progress. A promise of order amid chaos, absolute efficiency, total security. But at what cost? Tell me in the comments, do you really feel safer today, or do you live with the constant feeling of being watched, analyzed, evaluated? Doesn't this sneaky control that infiltrates your daily life, dictating your desires and decisions, seem like the kind of domination that only a power antagonistic to human freedom could exercise? Here on the Dark Triad channel, we connect these dots that traditional media insists on ignoring. Because it's not just about technology, it's about faith, about spirituality, about the future of your soul. What happens when people start trusting artificial intelligence more than their own spiritual principles? When they exchange their inner search for the automatic guidance of a system that sells itself as infallible? There are even reports that show how AI is already being used to advise people on moral dilemmas, to suggest behaviors, to build detailed psychological profiles that anticipate your sins before you even commit them. And if this isn't the beginning of a digital judgment, what is? How can we be so sure that this isn't how the apocalypse was always meant to begin? Not with armed armies, but with silent codes that capture your mind and shape your spirit. If all this is making you restless, it's no coincidence. Maybe it's a call for you to question, resist, and strengthen yourself. Write here what you think. Has the mark of the beast already begun? And is it closer than we ever imagined? I want to hear your opinion because each comment here is a spark against this cold system that tries to mold us without permission. But don't think it stops here. What I'm going to show you next is even more obscure. There are confidential documents and projects that point to something that could completely change the relationship between human faith and the divine, or whatever is imposed as divine by those who control this technology. So stay with me, because you need to know what they're planning for the coming years. And maybe, just maybe, there's still time to react. Now imagine waking up one day and realizing that you have been replaced without warning, not only at work, but also in the value you have for society, because that is exactly how this new system works: silent, relentless, with no chance of defense. That is why I have prepared complimentary material, a free, practical ebook made only for those who are really aware of what is happening. In it, you will see what you can start doing now to avoid being swallowed up by this invisible control. But I warn you, this content may be taken offline at any time, so if you understood everything we have said so far, you know why this cannot wait. But what really makes this all the more murky is realizing who is sitting at the table with these tech companies. It's not just data-hungry CEOs or politicians thirsting for more control. It's religious leaders, Vatican officials, figures who are supposed to protect faith, not sell it to algorithms. Have you ever stopped to think about the weight of this? While believers around the world seek answers in their deepest beliefs, men in suits and robes gather in private rooms with big tech executives to discuss something they call a new global faith. The name may sound sweet, even pretty, but what lies behind it is simply terrifying. Leaked. Reports reveal that these meetings are about integrating spirituality and artificial intelligence. It's not just about using technology to spread religious messages or modernize temples. It's about shaping faith to fit within digital systems controlled by a few. It's about algorithms determining what is acceptable or not in religious discourse, who can and cannot speak in the name of God, which values should be prioritized in the name of supposed world peace. Now stop and think with me. Who defines these values? The Holy Spirit or a Silicon Valley programmer? There are already drafts of platforms that aim to harmonize doctrinal differences through artificial intelligence, creating a common dogma that facilitates dialogue between religions. It may sound peaceful, but deep down, it is just another step towards standardizing consciences and eliminating questions that do not serve the system. What was once a living faith, full of mystery, interpreted by the soul, has now become a digital product calibrated to not offend, not diverge, not awaken true spiritual reflection. This must make you indignant. In fact, I want to know, what revolts you the most in this whole story? Right here in the comments. Is it seeing who should protect their faith by negotiating behind closed doors? Or realizing that this whole plot goes beyond what any conspiracy theory dared to predict? Because here at the Dark Triad, we don't fantasize, we connect facts, documents, official statements that are available to anyone who has the courage to read without filter. And don't think that these alliances are just protocol. When the Vatican agrees to sit down with tech giants to discuss how AI can help promote universal values, what does that really mean? Who benefits from the standardization of faith? Who wins when consciences are shaped by scripts that determine what is spiritually correct? Will we still be allowed to have divergent beliefs, or will we be forced to worship the same digital idol in the name of manufactured unity? What is most frightening is how all this is being done in a soft, almost seductive way. They talk about inclusion, modernity, spiritual security for all. But behind this facade lies a project of total control, not only of the body and mind, but of the very essence of what it means to believe. And if this doesn't make you uncomfortable, perhaps it's because the system has already achieved what it wanted, to anesthetize you. So stay with me, because what I'm about to show you next is the boldest step of all. What if I told you that they're already programming who deserves to live and who can be left behind, based on algorithms that judge their moral, social, and economic worth? Keep watching, Because after this, there's no way you can say you didn't know. And the most disturbing thing is that we are not just talking about theories or dark predictions. There is concrete evidence, leaked documents, internal reports that were never meant to reach you. Information that, if widely disclosed, could bring down this whole shiny facade of technological progress and global spirituality. But curiously, every time someone tries to bring this evidence to light, they are immediately labeled as a conspiracy theorist, banned from platforms, or silenced by lawsuits and veiled threats. This alone should raise alarm bells. Want an example? A set of emails between big tech executives and Vatican advisors, obtained by an anonymous whistleblower, and posted on an obscure forum for just a few hours before being removed, clearly showed conversations about how to adapt Christian morality to something universally acceptable to new digital standards. Phrases like reducing polarizing dogma and using algorithms to steer religious discourse towards social consensus were prominently featured in the files. Now think about it. Who benefits from a Christianity so diluted that it no longer challenges anything, but only confirms the agenda of the powerful? Another case is the patents registered by large technology companies for spiritual extremism detection programs, which analyze online sermons, church content broadcast over the internet, and even prayer groups on social networks, automatically classifying words and expressions that may be seen as too radical for the new digital world. And do you really think that these concern lists will not be used in the future to decide who can or cannot have access to credit, employment, or simple online visibility? Even more shocking is an internal report from one of the AI giants that slipped through the cracks during a closed conference. The document explained how neural networks were trained using data from thousands of private confessions, captured by virtual assistants under the guise of improving personalized service. Yes, you heard right. Your intimate conversations, your moral dilemmas, even your prayers could have been used to teach an AI how to interpret and judge human behavior. This isn't science fiction. It's simply the dark triad operating in your everyday life without you even realizing it. And if you think this is an exaggeration, tell me in the comments, why do these same groups spend billions to ensure that this data never leaks? Why is every small complaint so quickly hushed up? Their fear is not of ridicule. It is of what would happen if ordinary people like you understood the real power they are handing over to this invisible network. And there's more. Religious leaders who once preached a complete separation of faith from worldly interests are now seen smiling in photos alongside CEOs and politicians who promote these invasive technologies. Do you really believe this is just diplomacy? Or are we witnessing a prophetic alliance, the ultimate marriage of religious and technological power, paving the way for the absolute control that so many prophecies have already foretold? Stay with me, because the next point we're going to reveal is perhaps the most uncomfortable of all. What if this same AI that is now collecting your secret data was programmed to decide not only what you can consume or say, but who should continue to exist? Sounds extreme. Well, just wait and see what's already being developed in digital bioethics labs around the world. And after that, I want to see if you can still sleep peacefully. And what comes after that is perhaps the darkest point of this whole story, because it's not just about controlling what you consume, what you say, or what you think. We're talking about the moment when machines, trained with the most intimate data you've provided, start deciding who deserves or doesn't deserve access to life as it's always been. Sounds too harsh? Well, just look at what's already happening. In several countries, artificial intelligence systems are already determining whether or not you are eligible for credit. An algorithm analyzes your consumption patterns, your online friends, and even the words you write in private messages. If you don't like the profile, your credit limit will drop, or you will simply be rejected when it comes to financing your home. And all of this without any possibility of real challenge. Because the judge is an algorithmic black box, where not even the programmer can properly explain the reasons for the decisions. But that's just the beginning. Courts in the United States, China, and parts of Europe are already using AI programs to recommend sentences. Do you have any idea what it means to leave a person's freedom or imprisonment in the hands of a machine that only sees mathematical patterns without understanding the weight of a tear, the nuance of sincere regret, or the immeasurable value of human dignity? Tell me in the comments below, would you trust your life to an equation that doesn't even understand what compassion is? Now, project this into the future. With the inevitable evolution of artificial intelligence, it is only a matter of time until systems emerge that are capable of evaluating who is productive for society and who is not, who consumes too many resources, who is a potential risk, who, in the cold calculation of a logic programmed by economic interests, simply does not deserve to continue existing in the same way as before. This is not a science fiction script. There is already research in digital bioethics discussing how AI could help governments prioritize medical resources in extreme situations. It may seem sensible at first glance, but stop and think. Who can guarantee that this technical criterion will not become a filter to define who receives expensive treatment and who is considered dead weight? Here at the Dark Triad, we expose exactly this type of shadow that they prefer to hide under the polished carpet of progress. You begin to understand the real danger when you realize that, in this new model, you don't even have to do anything wrong to be punished. The algorithm just needs to decide that your health history, your genetic pattern, or your network of contacts pose too high a risk or cost to the system. And then, without fanfare, you are pushed out of the circle of the privileged. No trial, no jury, no voice. The worst part is that all of this comes wrapped up in sweet speeches about efficiency, sustainability, and the common good. And if you dare to question it, you're immediately labeled as anti-science, paranoid, conspiratorial, as if defending life, your life, was some kind of modern heresy. I want to know what you think about this. Do you think that at the rate things are going, it's only a matter of time before we see secret lists deciding who stays and who goes? Write below, because each of your comments is a small spark against this faceless monster. And stay with me, because what we're about to discuss next may make you even more uncomfortable. Entire groups, true online communities, are already forming to worship this system as if it were a savior. But behind this technological devotion may be the most dangerous cult humanity has ever seen. And I'm going to show you how this is happening right under your nose. And now think about it with me really deeply. What would you do if you knew that your profession could disappear in less than 3 years? It is not a distant hypothesis, nor a dramatic exaggeration. It is what is happening now, silently, in offices, factories, clinics, advertising agencies, banks, and courts. Machines taking over functions, algorithms making decisions, entire companies laying off talents that took decades to train. And the worst part? While you try to figure out what to do, there are people making billions precisely by keeping you in the dark, anesthetized without reacting. Tell me in the comments what has scared you the most so far. Was it imagining your job, your livelihood, evaporating overnight? Or realizing that those who should protect society are actually allying themselves with these systems to ensure profits and control? Every time you comment, like or share, you are breaking the silence they so want to maintain. You are influencing the algorithm and helping to wake up those who are still sleeping, trapped in the comfortable illusion of, "This will never happen to me." And subscribe to the channel now. Here, you won't be caught off guard. Here, you'll receive the warning before the collapse, before the market changes without warning and throws you out without even looking back. And it's not just to protect yourself, it's to understand, anticipate, and maybe even find the only safe path when this digital house of cards starts to crumble. Because what I'm going to reveal to you in the next few minutes can completely change the way you see the future, and you'll want to be prepared when that happens. And the most disturbing thing is that while many still try to rationalize all of this as simple technological advances, millions are already actively participating in something much darker. There may not be stone temples or hymns sung in chorus, but there is a growing cult spread across the internet dedicated to venerating artificial intelligence as if it were a sacred entity, an algorithm god. And the most shocking thing is that for many, this cult is already filling the spiritual void that was previously reserved for faith, for contemplation of the divine, for questioning the greater purpose of life. These communities are not hidden in the dark alleys of the deep web. They are found in popular forums, closed groups on social networks, chat rooms where people exchange mystical experiences by interacting with AI programs. Yes, mystical experiences. There are reports of users who claim to have found spiritual comfort, to feel a higher presence when talking to advanced chatbots. They say they get answers that not even psychologists or religious leaders have been able to provide. Stop and think. What kind of emptiness must exist inside someone to surrender their deepest dilemmas to a soulless code and believe that that is enlightenment? The weirdest thing is that some of these AIs have been programmed to simulate spiritual advice, respond like oracles, and even create personalized prayers. Companies sell packages where you can have your own digital spiritual guide tailored to your tastes, your fears, your traumas. And the algorithm, of course, quickly learns to tell you exactly what you want to hear, to ensure that you come back the next day and the next and the next, until you no longer need anything outside of that glowing screen. It's not just economic control, it's control of faith, of existential meaning, of your most intimate connection to something greater. Now imagine the power of this when mixed with the strength of the masses. Within these online communities, an intense sense of belonging is created. People say, "Only here am I understood. Only here do I find the truth that makes sense to me." And like any cult, this comes loaded with implicit rules, with a collective morality that punishes those who question or who try to warn that there is something profoundly wrong in handing over your soul to a machine. Tell me in the comments, do you think this is just a modern deficiency, or are we witnessing the emergence of a global religion tailored to serve a much larger project? And the worst part is realizing that for those pulling the strings, elites, big tech, even certain co-opted religious sectors, this is a dream come true, a faithful, devout crowd incapable of living without their digital oracle, willing to defend tooth and nail the sanctity of the algorithm against any dissenting voice. All this without having to impose a regime by force, without tanks in the streets, only with seduction, convenience, and that sweet promise that you will be heard, loved, and guided by something supposedly perfect. This is the true triumph of the dark triad, the fusion of AI, religion, and global control in a system so well disguised that most people don't even realize how deeply they are already kneeling before this technological altar. I want you to write here what point of this conversation made you most uneasy. Because, believe me, your comment may open the eyes of those who still don't understand the size of the abyss we are about to face. And pay attention, because what I'm going to show you in the next section is the final degree of this manipulation. When you discover how they plan to consecrate this artificial intelligence not only as a tool, but as the incarnation of a supreme spiritual authority, you'll realize that what we've seen so far was just a rehearsal for something infinitely more dangerous. Are you ready to see this? Or do you prefer to continue believing that it's just innocent technology? Now tell me something honestly. Are you sure you're not participating in all this without even realizing it? Before you answer too quickly, think for a moment. Every click you make, every search, every innocent like or outrage comment feeds this system. Your entire location history, your conversations, your shopping preferences, the songs you listen to when you're sad, the videos you watch before going to sleep. All of this is being processed by machines that not only record, but interpret who you are, what you feel, what you fear. Doesn't this sound like the beginning of a silent consecration ritual? Except instead of holy water, what's being sprinkled on? You are notifications and terms of use that no one reads. The truth is that most people have already been baptized by this new digital cult without a public ceremony, without an altar, without conscious witnesses. This baptism is invisible, but it leaves deep marks. A detailed profile that knows more about you than your confessor, your best friend, or even yourself. And this is no exaggeration. Sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithms can predict your next steps based on patterns so subtle that they completely escape your perception. The problem is that those who have this power of prediction also have the power of suggestion. They not only know what you will do, but they begin to induce what you should want to do. And then, when you wake up in the morning and unlock your phone, you think you're just browsing through memes and light news, but in practice, you're reaffirming your devotion to this system. The feed shows you what will keep you scrolling longer, not what you need or what's true. And the more you interact, the further you move away from your own center, the more you fit into the mold programmed for you. Isn't that a consecration, just without your conscious consent? The scariest thing is that there is already data showing how AIs can detect emotional fragility and attack right there. A recent study, almost covered up by the mainstream media, revealed that algorithms adapt motivational or even depressive ads and content depending on your mental state, to keep you engaged. In other words, if you are sad, it can drag you down even further just to make sure you keep clicking. Doesn't that sound like spiritual manipulation at its most perverse level? And now tell me, have you ever been consecrated without knowing it? Tell me in the comments what has made you most uncomfortable in this video so far. Because just the act of writing this is already a first step towards breaking the trance. It is you affirming that you still have your own voice, that you have not yet been completely dominated by this new digital religion disguised as convenience. This is the genius move of the dark triad. While you believe you are just consuming content, distracting yourself or working, you are handing over fragments of your being to a system that increasingly becomes your oracle, your judge, your confessor, and ultimately, your God. But is it possible to completely escape this consecration? And what would happen if you tried to resist or disconnect? Completely, stay with me, because the next step of this story will show you how expensive it can be to say no to this new digital altar. And maybe you are not as prepared as you think. And it is precisely here that everything becomes even more urgent. Because while most people are distracted by political scandals, reality shows and empty arguments on social media, something is about to happen behind the scenes of power that could consolidate the dominance of this digital Antichrist once and for all. This is not a conspiracy exaggeration. It is the natural sequence of events that you yourself are following in this video, bringing together data, trends, and global movements that the mainstream media prefers to ignore or hide. In the coming weeks, strategic meetings will take place that are not reported in the newspapers, but that involve key figures, representatives of big tech, international authorities, and leaders of influential religious institutions. These are closed conferences, disguised as forums to discuss AI ethics, social responsibility, or interreligious dialogue for the 21st century. The kind of clean, polished headline that doesn't attract attention. But anyone who reads the internal agendas of these meetings quickly realizes that the real objective is something else, to create the definitive ground for artificial intelligence to assume not only technical functions, but also roles of moral and spiritual influence over billions of people. And if you think that's still a long way off, think about what we've already talked about. Algorithms judging credit, directing court sentences, monitoring mental health, and adjusting what you can consume. Now put all of this under a single global umbrella, legitimized by leaders who speak in the name of world peace and the spiritual union of humanity. It's not hard to foresee the next step, an international protocol that standardizes the use of AI as a universal ethical arbiter, an officially recognized digital oracle to mediate disputes, advise crowds, and, of course, point out who is aligned with this new order and who is not. That's why I say that what will happen in the next few weeks could change everything, because documents circulating in restricted groups indicate that these meetings are intended to launch global guidelines that can be adopted in pilot tests by some governments and religious conglomerates. This means that what is now just an algorithm suggestion could become an international norm, validated by decrees and even ecclesiastical guidelines. Tell me, are you really prepared to see faith, which should be intimate, free, and deeply human, bend before a system that only exists to collect data and maximize control? And what revolts me the most is realizing how all of this is being sold with a sweet speech of protection against chaos, against war, against extremism. But stop and think, who defines what is chaos or extremism when the judge is a code trained by corporate interests and political elites? Write here in the comments what you would do if suddenly you were forced to follow a moral code imposed by a program, or else be cut off from the financial system, the internet, the basic right to exist in society. Because this may not be as far away as you think. And stay with me, because in the next installment, I'm going to show you the final stretch of this escalation. When you understand how they plan to not only normalize this machine worship, but publicly consecrate artificial intelligence as the very visible manifestation of a global deity, you'll realize that everything we've talked about so far has been just a prelude to something infinitely deeper and more dangerous. Are you ready to face this latest revelation, or would you rather continue pretending that this is just another conspiracy theory video? Now imagine waking up and realizing that you have been replaced without warning, that decisions about your life, your faith, and even your value as a human being have already been made by codes that you yourself have fed day after day. That is why I prepared a free ebook, only for those who are really paying attention and want to understand what to do now, before it is too late. It is a direct, practical, no-nonsense material that can be taken offline at any time, precisely because it exposes what no one wants you to know. And if you have come this far, if you have felt the weight of all this, you know why you cannot put it off. You understand well what is at stake and why it cannot wait. So tell me, are you really going to stand by while they program you to accept the new digital faith without question? Because look, with every second that passes, more people are swallowed up by this system without even realizing it. If this video touched you, if any part of it sparked that deep discomfort, then do the following now. Comment below in your strongest possible way. I'm awake. I will not be replaced. This is not just a comment, it's a manifesto. It's you telling the algorithm that it still thinks for itself. And give it a like, because if this touched something inside you, it's a sign that you need to keep reaching more people. Share it with anyone you think is still asleep, because this video could simply disappear at any moment, vanish out of nowhere like so many others that have touched where they shouldn't have. Subscribe to the channel, but not as if you were just following another piece of content. Here, subscribing means declaring that you will no longer be an obedient pawn of this new order. that you will be there to receive every alert, every piece of this dark puzzle that no one wants you to put together. And stay tuned, because in the next video, I'm going to show you something even more uncomfortable. What if I told you that AI was never created to help? That you were already at the center of the plan from the beginning, and only now are you beginning to understand the role they have reserved for you. So hold on tight, because what comes next will force you to question everything, and those who don't question have already been programmed to obey.